where the Kindle Nook stops.
Miriam. Got it.
Oops.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Last Blackout launch, first launch. There's going to be many launches. This is at Cafe Neo, which is my favorite restaurant, so coffee shop in Sea Point. It's so nice to see new faces and young faces, and perhaps people I've known for 50 years as well. And it's really great. And people have come from far afield, and they're all very appreciative, as far away as Kenilworth, and perhaps even further away than that. So, Camp's based quite far away from Sea Point. So, yes, thank you everybody for being here. So, the Last Blackout started in 1999 when I had a vision of a world that was clean and environmentally friendly. Spoke to God at my dining room table. And I have that download. It's in a file if anybody wants to read it. You're welcome to come round. And it says, Dear David, and it's like a 5-page essay at the end of which it says, Love God. Then things happened, and in 2004 I discovered wind turbines after my mother told me, as I read in the book, that I used to chase after windmills. Miguel de Cervantes and that guy. Not guilty. Don Quixote, exactly, thank you. Don Quixote and Cervantes and so on. My mother said I would come home and I'd be dreaming about a future that didn't exist, just like Don Quixote. So, and then that was in like 1967, 68, around there. And then in 2004 I discovered wind turbines. And so then I started chasing after wind turbines as opposed to windmills. And then in 2008 the government announced feed-in tariffs, and I put the Mercedes on my roof. I joke that it's the Mercedes on my roof because I took the money that I was going to use to buy my first Mercedes cash, and I spent the money on my roof, and I'm going to America for a month, and I came back raring to go, and the government didn't do anything. It's called greenwashing, when the government makes an announcement and doesn't do anything about it. So I found myself speaking at conferences all over South Africa, and then there was a hiatus from 2016 to 2021, which is in the book, and called it a reboot. And then about beginning of May, I decided, or April, I was trying to, for 2 years, I was trying to work out how to take all of my knowledge and put it into the most succinct form. And I was finding it that I could, in my mind, I could explain to someone in 5 minutes how I saw the world, but when I started explaining to people, sort of 60 hours later, I was still explaining it to them. So then I thought, okay, I've got an MBA, but maybe my model's out of date. I then decided to join the American Incentive Marketing Association, IMA, and to write their 2 exams. They have a one-day course, which is called the IP exam, and then they have a 3-month course. And I bought all the books, but I bought 4 of the books, 4 out of 5, and I downloaded 60 PDFs, and I started reading them. And then on the 24th of May, while I was busy engineering all of my stuff into crowbarring it into one of the IMA models, Gilbert's model and incentive models and all kinds of wonderful things. I normally go to bed about 11, and that Tuesday night I was really, really tired. And I said to Mariana, I know it's 7:30, but I've got to go to bed now. And she's very understanding, and so I went to sleep, and I woke up at 12:30 a.m. And she was still awake, because in our house I go to bed like 9 to 11 and she goes to bed 12 to 2, and that works fine for us. We kind of have lunch together, and see, she's laughing, it's probably true. And we've been married for such a long time. Today is our anniversary of living in our house for 26 years. So in that time, you can imagine how well we got to know each other. And on this anniversary, I'm launching this fantastic book. And I can say it's fantastic because someone told me. So on the 24th, I went to bed early, woke up at 12:30, and I started getting a download. And 10 minutes later, I started writing in my notes application on my phone, and then it was chapter 1, and then I quickly copied it to Google Keep because I wasn't prepared to lose it. And then chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and at 6 a.m. I went to sleep, and I woke up at 7, and I went to my computer where I have a program called Scrivener, which sounds like something from Harry Potter. And Scrivener is a program that one uses for writing complicated documents like books. And
Comes from the Italian, obviously.
Scrivere.
To write. Latin.
up straight. So Scrivener means to write in Latin,
Okay.
apparently. So please feel free to interrupt. I do it all the time, so I expect people to do it to me, and it's not a problem. Because we need to have deep debate. You know, we're not debating, but that's in the book too, about debate. And debate is not what you catch the fish with. Debate is deep discussion. That's a joke. I always got to tell people. I know that Clara got it immediately. So I got this download, and I took the book that I'd written and I put it into Scrivener, and I discovered it was 8,000 words that I typed into my phone. And then I read it, and I thought, wow, I've got a novel, I've got a thriller. Fantastic, thank you God, incredible. And then I started writing and writing and writing, and then in the middle of June, about 2 weeks later, I decided that I'm publishing it on the 1st of August. Now, you know, my friend over there, who's an IT expert, a genius programmer, I won't mention his name, but he knows who he is.
Is he better than you are?
His name is Chris.
Is he better than you are?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. So apparently someone said, is he better than you? But I think there was someone, Tesla, who was asked, or Edison, you know, someone said to Edison, who's the top genius in the world? And he said, you'd have to ask Tesla. So ask him. But thank you. Yeah. We're pretty much on a par, you know. So I typed the book into the computer, and then in the middle of June I set a deadline. It's called a milestone. When you write computer software, you have milestones. These are dates that cannot move. And then the thing that happens when you set a milestone is that all the world's energy comes to help you. If you don't have a milestone, like my first 5 books, there were no milestones. They took ages to write. The first one took 22 years from the time I wrote it to the time I published it. This book took 25th of May till today, which is quite phenomenal. I had a lot of help. For example, there's a guy who's not here, should be here maybe a bit later, who helped me with the cover design. I came up with a cover design which looked nothing like this, and you'll see that there's Cole on the cover. And when Matthew came up with the Cole cover, just like a week after I engaged him, it was just so incredible. I thought, wow, you know, Cole got us into the mess, and Cole's got to get us out of the mess. So it was just, you know, I would put a wind turbine on the cover, but he put Cole on the cover, and it just makes so much more sense to have Cole on the cover. And also, when there's Cole on the big poster, then, you know, it's kind of incredible that there's Cole. And then I wrote the book, and the book got to about 200 pages, and then Mariana says any book that's more than 200 pages is called a headache book, because you're reading it in bed and you drop it and you get a headache. So she doesn't want any book to be more than 200 pages, so then it was going to be 200 pages, and there were going to be 3 books. And then a few weeks ago, stage 6 load shedding happened. And I got about 4 phone calls like the next day from people telling me, David, you've got to publish a book now. F-U-C-K. But I'm in polite company, so, and I don't know who's sitting outside. So I decided that I would get the book published sort of a month earlier. So what happened is I dropped a chapter into another book. It's the chapter that tells us how to fix the problem. And I added 2 chapters that were going to be in the next book about the other scenario. So you'll see there's 2 scenarios in the book. There are 3 scenarios in the book. They happen on 2 days. The one day is next winter, and the other one is next summer. So first it was going to be August 2023, and then Mariana said, but David, your book won't be in the future in September 2023. And I said, you're right. So I thought, let's just make it next summer and next winter. Very genius. So the book is always in the future because it's always next. Even we're in winter now, so the book is next winter. and in summer it'll be next summer. We've got to, of course, pray that the last blackout doesn't happen, and we'll get to that. So the first scenario happens on a Saturday morning when it looks like it's me speaking, and I start writing, write, and then I get to a point where I say, I'm going to go and talk to David. And that's when I realize that I'm not actually the narrator. So the narrator was someone else, and then I got introduced as the hero. You know, the hero comes riding in. You know, when you have a thriller, the only thriller that starts off with the hero in the first scene is James Bond. You always see James Bond at the beginning of a James Bond movie, but in every other book, thriller, etc., the hero always comes in later. He arrives on his white horse, and as you've seen recently with electricity power failures, women are more likely to see men on white horses now than at any other time in the recent past. That's a joke. So, because if you don't have a car, then you can expect your man to arrive on a white horse and come and save you, right? Because there's no electricity in it. There's no electricity. There's no petrol. If there's no petrol, there's no cars, which means we have to go back to horses, and we have horsepower. So we continue. Just pausing for breath. Cup of coffee. I like coffee, by the way. I'm happy to drink coffee with anybody anytime. And wine. Wine's always good. Just don't wine. And Vanilla is drinking some wine. And Chris. So, where are we? Okay, so the first scenario happens at 6:30 on Saturday morning, and Bongani. So I had people's names, people I knew. And then the problem was, and there was like Elon Musk in the book, and there was all kinds of famous people like Alan and other people that were in the book. And then I realized I can't put real people's names in the book, because I might say something negative and then they'll sue me. So literary fiction is when you have a book like Gladiator, which is written about something that really happened, but it's written 2,000 years later. So if you talk about Julius Caesar, it's okay, he can't sue you. You know, well, he might walk in at any minute, but you know, probably won't be him. And so, yeah. Look, I mean, if I'm introducing to Julius, no problem. But that's a different kind of Julius, not Julius Caesar. So, you know, that's called literary fiction. So then I set it in the future, and I said it's literary fiction because I'm writing about real people of what they may have done. But even that was complicated. But Eskom's push is in the book. Eskom's push, great word. They said they got the name because of push notifications, but they're just saying that because they really got the name from Eskom's. And, you know, but they can't say that, so they're saying Eskom's push notifications. Sorry, Chris, I'll explain to you later. And Chris is an IT guy, he's a nerd, so he doesn't get all the jokes, but he understands computers. So that's also a joke. So where are we? Yeah. So Bongani. So what I did is I went to a website. I typed in top South African names. Okay. Top most used South African names. Now let me ask you all a question. What is the top most used male name in South Africa?
John.
Very close. Very close. It's actually the Afrikaans version of John. Jan. Johannes. So interestingly enough, the most common name in South Africa is Johannes, and the most common black name is Bongani. So the narrator's name is Bongani. The next most common name is no, Johannes isn't in the book. I can't even remember the names of people in the book, but there's Bongani, there's David, this guy David. I act as myself in the book because I'm not going to sue myself. There's Costas, he's the Greek grocer. Okay. there's Jane. Mariana didn't want to be Mariana in the book. She wanted to be Jane. We went through like 20 names. I said Lebel. She said, no, you can't say Lebel because Lebel is like this black woman who's like ultra sexy, you know, so I can't have her in my book. And then there's, you know, Samantha, who was from the wet t-shirt competition at university. I can't have her in the book, so Jane is Mariana. And then there's Jabulani. He lives in the Guguletu township and he also has this load shedding event that he wasn't expecting. And then there's Lindiwe. Lindiwe is in charge of a data center. And Chris, you're going to love the second last chapter because it explains in detail how data center redundancy works. And the reason I put all that in there is because I said if Eskom just asked a data center operator how to run a data center, they'll learn how to run Eskom. Because Eskom runs with something called negative redundancy. They use one power station, or even one generator at a power station, we've got load shedding. You know, a data center's got to lose like 5 computers and 3 disk arrays before we even notice there's a problem. And then there's Zanele. She's the CEO of the call center. Then there's Sibongile, and he is the president of South Africa. And then there's Mpho, because he refers to the previous president, Mpho. And then there's M, who might be Mariana, but could be M from James Bond. The president, Simongile's private secretary, and then there's Fredo Mutwa, he's referred to in the book, and then there's a bibliography. And in order to get the book speeded up, I put the bibliography at the front because it just made the numbering system easier. One of the things I had to learn to do in Word was to have 2 different number sequences. And also I had to have a blank page because the book has to start on the right-hand page. But the table of contents ends on the right-hand page. So there had to be a blank page there. So just technically, this book starts a new section with page 1, and then that page 1 starts another new section. So what you do in Word is you create a new section. When you create a new section, then you can start the numbering system again. So that's what happened. I also needed help. Okay, just please don't all run. Because, you know, I do need help. So I needed to understand how it was that Tom Clancy and John Grisham and all these guys got you riveted. Are you riveted, sir? Thank you, my man. So, and so what I did is for breakfast on my birthday 2 months ago, which was 5 days before I got the download, I took David and Audrey and Mariana and a few other people out for brunch over here. And David was kind enough to give me a 400 Rand gift voucher for Wordsworth Books. And if you don't know anything about Wordsworth Books, there's only like 5 of them in Cape Town. One of them happens to be at the Woodbridge, no, what's it called?
St. John's.
No, the shopping centre in Durbanville. Willowbridge, thank you. Willowbridge. That's why I need help, you see. So Willowbridge, and I popped into Willowbridge. It was on a Saturday, and the place was packed with people selling all kinds of wonderful stuff. And so I went to Willowbridge, and I said, I'm looking for the Bard, Wickelspest, Shakespeare. I said, I'm looking for a Shakespeare play. So I say, I'm thinking I'm going to buy the whole anthology for 400 Rand, because that was this gift voucher that David gave me. And so they take me to they put out a sonnet, book of sonnets, and I said, no, it's not quite, I'm not writing sonnets. Then they put out the next book, and that's 12th Night. Perfect. Because I wanted to know, how did, the Bard, how did he write acts and scenes? And when there was a person's name, and it says, for example, Bongani is in italics, and the next paragraph is indented, and that, the Bard came up with that format. And of course he lived a few thousand years ago, like in the 16th or 17th century, so it's okay for me to copy that kind of thing, the layout. And then Act 1, Scene 1, I copied that all out, but that didn't fit in with the table of contents, so that had to be modified. So I've taken some creative license, and that was 70 Rand. And then I said, I need the latest Tom Clancy or John Grisham book. And they said, here it is. And you're never going to believe what the price was. Anybody?
1,000 Rand.
No, the book, the gift voucher was 400 Rand, and the Bard, the book 12 Night was 70 Rand. So how much do you guess God is working here, right? How much is the book?
430.
No. I hear 330, going once. 330, exactly. The book is 330 Rand, and I realized that God sent me to Willowbridge to buy 12th Night for 70 Rand and Tom Clancy's book for 330. And I came home and immediately worked out, professional speaker, thanks for coming, checking up on me. So, always welcome, thank you. I've lost my place because the professional speaker just walked in.
Yeah. You paid exactly
Let me have some more coffee.
for the 2 books.
I know where I
Oh,
am.
thank you to buy the book.
Thank you.
I'm very lucky that I've got Dawn here because she's got the script and she's just, standing in the corner here just saying what the next sentence is, which is brilliant. Thanks, Dawn. So I went home and I first copied the Bard's, book layout, and then I read Tom Clancy's book. Now Tom Clancy died in 2013, but he's still writing books because there's 3 people writing books in his name, and this one was by someone Cameron. And so I needed to get information quickly. I needed 2 things. Firstly, I wanted to enjoy the book, so I had to read the book. And then I had to do some multitasking because I had to learn how did Tom Clancy and all those guys write books in such a way that you were riveted. And how did they deal, and the first thing I learned is they wrote the book in the present tense. So the book has got to be in the present tense. And then I had to learn as well, how did they refer to something that happened in the past? And they just put a little blank space and then they wrote the past. So I did that. So it was actually interesting to read the book with 2 different frames of mind at the same time. One, I'm really enjoying the book. Secondly, I'm dissecting the book and learning all these things about how to write a thriller, because this is my 6th book, but my first thriller. So that's helped me with that, and thanks to David Hershey-Bar for sorting me out at Willowbridge Shopping Centre. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read you the first bit of the book. So there's a preamble and a disclaimer. I had to involve a lawyer, especially with the fact that I was initially using people's names, but then I decided, when the lawyer told me it's going to take me 3 weeks to come back to me, I decided to take the names out. That was a fantastic thing he did, because I engaged him. He was the 3rd guy I found, and because lawyers wanted to try to rend his contracts, so I wanted a lawyer who wasn't going to make me sign that kind of contract. And then, please speak to me afterwards if you want to know about that. And but yeah, the book is written in the future. It presents possible scenarios made up by the author. The book is science fiction horror. So my friend in London who read the initial preamble a few months ago says to me, "David, it's a horror." I said, "How could it be horror? I'm not taking a corkscrew and stringing it into someone's eye. I really don't like that kind of thing. And he said, "No, it's not about that, David. Just look up horror." So I went to, the dictionary, and I discovered horror means fear. And obviously, there's a lot of fear in the book. So it's a science fiction horror. It is horrible because of the fear in it. It is a science fiction because it is written in the future. All trademarks are recognized, although for ease of reading, the author hasn't used the trademark or registered trademark symbols in the text. And here's the paragraph from the lawyer. It says, "This book is a work of fiction. It paints a hypothetical scenario to engage people in thought and debate around a highly relevant topic, energy security. As a work of fiction, the author-publisher, I'm the author and the publisher, cannot and does not warrant, guarantee, or promise the outcome of a scenario set out in the book. Furthermore, if any character described in the book bears a resemblance to a real, living, or legal person, this is merely coincidental." And then there's acknowledgments, and I just want to read you the acknowledgments because it's important. So if I start crying, then David, just bring the hanky, please. It's actually quite funny. I've read the book 25 times, and there's certain sections that I read and I start crying. So anyway, I would like to thank the many friends and colleagues and contacts who have supported my research and development over the decades and have kept me sane whilst the world called me a quack and worse. I've been deplatformed, cancelled, and worse. But as Anne Frank said in her diary, and I wrote in brackets, "I feel the same way about a common environment." Here's Anne. She wrote in the Second World War from Holland as the German tanks rolled up. It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build my hopes on a foundation of confusion, misery and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the approaching thunder. I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come out right one of these days. That this cruelty will end, and I added that this cruelty to the environment will end. And that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must hold on to my ideals, or perhaps the day will come when I shall be able to carry them out. So here's Anne Frank in hiding, writing about something that happened, a really nasty event, and I'm reading this and thinking, wow, this is me, you know. And her life was cancelled, and you'll read my life was cancelled in 2016. I would like to thank the special animals. They couldn't be here today, but they're at home, send everybody love and joy. I would like to thank the special animals who live with us. They make my life a joy. Their constant love and affection is infectious, and like my computer, they love me if I shout at them or I'm gentle with them. That's the nice thing about computers, Chris. You can scream at them and they still love you. And lastly, I want to thank my ever-patient wife, Mariana, for unconditional love, her gentleness, her kindness, her patience, and her generosity. David Lipschitz, 1st of July 2022. Then there's a taxonomy, which is how the book's written. There's a cast in order of appearance. There's a bibliography. There's a table of contents. It's called the play because the first book is a play with acts and scenes. And then there's part 1, scenario 1, a rainy Saturday next winter. Act 1, scene 1, at a house in Cape Town, a city in South Africa. I'm going to read the first couple of pages to you. It's a rainy winter Saturday in Cape Town, and I wake up to find load shedding is happening. There was no warning, and I was looking forward to going out for breakfast with a close friend. Load shedding is our South African electricity utility, Eskom's name, for planned power interruptions. It happens when more power stations are off than planned. I opened my Eskom's push app. By the way, I wrote to Eskom's push and asked him if I could use the name, and they said, great, go ahead. And there's no news. I open my Eskom's push app and there's no news. I load Twitter and look at the Eskom feed, no news. I go to the bathroom to wash and find no water pressure. I flush the toilet, which flushes but does not fill. How odd. I go snack something, open the fridge for some butter or milk, and discover that fridge is a bit warmer than expected. The butter's a bit soft. How long have we been off, I wonder? I went to sleep at 9:30 p.m. and woke up at 6 a.m. as usual. I look at my phone again and realize there's no signal for either phone calls or data. Which sometimes happens, I'll be finished in a minute, okay? Which sometimes happens at stage 4 or 5. And I think maybe it's because the generators, which typically have 8 to 16 hours of diesel, have run out of fuel. The stage is, sorry, hold on a second, we're in a restaurant. If you guys need to make coffee, just do it and then I'll stop for a minute. Carry on. You're going to make it on that side? Alright, they've got another machine on the other side of the office. Their office is a restaurant. Where are we?
The stages represent.
The stage, thank you. See my person behind the seat got on. The stages represent how many gigawatts of electricity need to be switched off rotationally across the grid. Stage 1 is 1 gigawatt for about 2.5 hours a day. Stage 2 is 2 gigawatts once or twice a day. Stage 3 is 3 gigawatts twice a day, and so on. I need to thank Grammarly for helping me with the editing, because to get an editor to edit this size book is 50,000 rand, and I couldn't afford that. But it's 1,000 rand for the professional version of Grammarly, so it's really helpful. We can talk about that. Feel free to ask me afterwards. We've experienced up to stage 6 in South Africa with about 9.5 hours a day of load shedding. However, Eskom, the electricity utility, has told us that up to stage 8 might happen. At stage 8, we will have about 13.5 hours a day of load shedding. Each load shedding event will be a 4.5 hour stretch instead of a 2.5 hour stretch, with our electricity being off for the time of the load shedding event. Apps like Eskom's Push allow us to see when load shedding will affect our area, and are great planning tools and should be supported. Maybe we've been off since 1 a.m. I think. And I noticed the eerie silence. Typically, during load shedding, some people's burglar alarms go off as batteries start going flat. Nothing. I switch on my laptop with its battery, no internet. I have the most up-to-date fiber line with the UPS uninterruptible power supply, backup for my network. I need 36 hours of load shedding before my network dies. Nothing. I remember that my fiber line dies when it's stage 4 or higher. It's probably something to do with fiber needing electricity. Luckily I have an old telecom landline, so I phoned a friend across town who's never off at the same time as me. He's also off. And I'm thinking about Vesna, because she lives next to Parliament and she's never off. Then I phone my friends in other cities who are also off. I'm getting worried. I've been distracted recently by lockdowns, the latest international war news, and the newest possible pandemic. I've just finished reading Vaccine Epidemic, An Empire of Pain, and I've been spending too much time in confusion, wondering where fake news is coming from. Is it possible that these are half-truths? True some of the time, but not all of the time. It is 7:30 a.m. now and I cannot get hold of my friend. Since load shedding started in 2008, I've been conscientious about keeping my car with a half full or higher fuel tank. So I open my garage door manually, get the car out and think I'll meet my friend at the coffee shop. I get to the first big traffic intersection and discover that those traffic lights, which always work, even during load shedding, are off and traffic is beginning to build. So in Coburg Road, near where I live, we have a set of traffic lights at the intersection of Coburg Road and Bosmansdam Road, and those lights are always working, even during load shedding. I'm all worried now. I decided to go back home and pass my local shop. They have a generator by in darkness, candles burn, and there's a big sign saying 50% off all cold and frozen food, because the fridges and freezers are warming up. You see, when you read the book, and as you'll see when I read the book on Audible and on the audiobooks, there's going to be a lot of ad-libbing going on, which I learned from another guy whose book I listened to who does it. I go inside, because I read his book and listened to him, and it's great. The book that he spoke is actually twice as much as the book that he wrote. I go inside to chat to my favorite Greek roaster, Costas, who has somehow survived the past 40 years of globalization and centralization of systems and supply chains. And he says, quote, I've been here since 4 a.m. to bake the bread and we've been off the whole time. We were never off for more than 2 or 3 hours. And I woke up at 3:15 a.m. for a shower and there was no pressure. I used our backup 500 litre water tank, and luckily it's raining at the moment, so it's full. But it's still a hassle to go outside and fill up the bucket. It's 8 a.m. and we've been off since at least 3:15 a.m. when my alarm woke me. The other odd thing is there's been no 4G or 3G or even cell phone signal the whole morning. And my office fiber line is down, and I cannot get hold of my bank. The credit card machine is not working. I can usually phone the bank for manual authorization, but that is not working. Most people who shop are my friends, so I've been writing invoices and my customers have been signing IOUs. What do you think is happening? I say I do not know, but my friend across town is also off, and my friends in Durban and Joburg, who still have telecom landlines, are also off. Thanks, Hilda. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm looking forward to reading the book, but by the time you've read it all, there'll be nothing left to read.
I'm finishing in 2 paragraphs.
Oh, but my doggy's waiting, so I've got to go.
Please.
Excuse me. Bye.
Thank you for coming. Bye. Are we also off?
Sorry? No, not all.
Oh, I say that I do not know, but my friend across town is also off. My friends in Durban and Joburg, who still have telecom landlines, are also off. My friend and shopkeeper has just boiled some water on his gas hob or range. So in brackets I put all the American words, what we call a hob, they call a hob or range. And he's handing out steaming coffees and hot chocolate to a few of his friends and customers standing around. That's all. That's when it hits us all. Now, when you read online on Audible, you'll see that's when it hits us all, is where everything stops. And if you go and look at Tom Clancy, John Grisham, all of them, they don't write what their books are about online. They put the first paragraph or 2, and they write it to a certain point where you riveted, you want to know more. So you get this one thing, I want more, and you buy the book. See, so it says that's when it hits us all. The other thing is that you only get about 600 words. So when you read that, what's online, you should actually reread the book. Well, you lot don't have to read it because you just heard it, but because it had to be pricey to get to that's when it hits us all. I'm just going to read a little bit more. It's too quiet. The Mornington Hospital MH is near us, and during load shedding, planned blackouts, those big 500 kilowatt generators normally rumble in the distance, but they are off. We send a teenager running to see if their small emergency and an emergency generator, which runs the ICU, theatre, refrigerator, and freezer equipment is running. It's on, and there's a police car, an armed response car at the generator. The kid returns to tell us that the rumors of a national South African bird meltdown.
He's the most gorgeous boy.
The hospital has activated. The hospital has activated their meltdown emergency procedures. One thing that's great about writing a book in the future is you can just make up anything, like the MEP, the meltdown emergency procedures. Giving them 2 weeks of the emergency and emergency power. You can invent things like they've got an extra spare small generator to run the emergency equipment, because they don't need to run the whole hospital, they just need to run the ICU and the refrigerators and freezers. And 2 of their combined police and armed response teams guard their generators and fuel supplies. The policeman said that at 3 a.m., MH activated the emergency systems. Teams have been delivering fuel, medicines and food from central warehouses to ensure the hospital can run with the designated 2-week complete outage time. All these data centers that are being built, that are all level 4 data centers, all have to go to survive for 2 weeks without electricity, without water, without inputs. So here we go. A friend who works on site at the Bravo call center. So if you happen to search for Bravo call center, you'll discover bravocallcenter.co.za, which I registered, and it points you to the book. So a friend who works on site at the Bravo call center in Cape Town pops past and says that his MEP, meltdown emergency procedure, has been activated. He has to go to the center and might be out of commission for 2 weeks. Blah, blah. I'm not going to read all that now. I just want to read to... Okay, but then we hear Sibongile speaking, and here we go. So President Sibongile comes online, and he says, let me just go here. We've been preparing at the end of President Sibongile's speech, which I'm not going to read. He says, we've been preparing for this day for 5 years. Good day. I cannot believe that our government has been preparing for massive failure for 5 years instead of using this time to deploy recommendations I've heard about from my friend David. I'm writing the book, and suddenly this happens. I think, geez, I'm not the narrator. Wow. I'm reading in shock. It's now 9:20 a.m. and the light rain clatters down. I'm thinking, at least 4 days with zero electricity, no vehicle transport, and they've been preparing for this day for 5 years. Why haven't they implemented David's ideas and taken them up on his proof of concept and research and development R&D has been doing since 1999? He's been writing to the government for decades with suggestions. He's even been trialing things himself. In 2010, he warned that scientifically, Majuba could see their 4.8 gigawatt coal power stations could never run as designed. He's spoken at conferences all over South Africa since 2008. He's been in the local papers, on TV, spoken in Parliament, talked to leaders of every political party, and left messages for many business leaders. Been on satellite TV and satellite news, most recently last week, and spoken to a presidential advisor and some government ministers. Most recently last week, I spoke immediately after the president spoke. It was great. I was the first energy expert to be interviewed on the NCA after the president said, we don't know what to do. Thank you. We've been laughing at him. Thank you. We've been laughing at him while he goes about prepping and not having holidays for years. He and his wife Jane no longer own cars, and he's had his office at home since 2002. Although he has a motorbike for sunny days. He's found it cheaper to use taxis, blah blah. Why didn't we listen to people like him, who have been showing us solutions for decades and trying to get us to look at the big picture? I decided to walk to David's house, half an hour away. Now, one of the problems I had was I had to get all the timings right. So initially it said 2 hours away, but then the problem was that President Sibongile comes to David's house at 11 o'clock, so it can't be 2 hours later. And then I had to make all the timings in the whole book match each other. So it's like I've got 3 versions of the book open at the same time so I can get all the timings right. I decided to walk to David's house, half an hour away, get a backpack, check the fridge, which is now starting to get warm, and move as much stuff to my chest freezer as possible. The one piece of advice I took from David is to have a chest freezer, as cold cannot fall out of a chest freezer or something like that. I laughed at David when he bought a vertical freezer twice my price and did not take his own advice. And he said his freezer is very efficient, using less than half my freezer's electricity, takes up less space, and it has drawers to minimize what is open. It's like having 5 small chest freezers. I lock the house and start the walk. And there's one more paragraph I want to read and then I'll stop. President Sibongile arrives at David's house and he says, page 27, Sibongile, I get it, but where did this wisdom come from? How did you continue on your quest when everyone was against you? No, this quest from that book, from Chasing After Windmills. How did you continue on your quest when everyone was against you, calling you a quack or worse? How did you know? No in inverted commas. David, How much time do you have? How honest can I be? Can I be open and frank? Will you kill the messenger if you don't like what he says? Sibongile. Parliaments and governments are shut down for at least 4 days. No one can get to the airports, including me. The internet is off except for satellite backup systems. I brought you a gift. It is our highest honor, the Medal of Freedom, or Order of Mapungubwe in platinum. It took me about 20 minutes to say it properly. But I knew about it, but never said it aloud. It is our highest honor, the Medal of Freedom or Order of Mapungubwe in platinum. And the Mayor of Cape Town has given you freedom of the city. I collected the certificate from him on the way here. And he's listening in on a government radio feed. I've also heard that you applied for a doctorate at UCT and submitted your thesis to the Jewish Studies Department. Where's my friend to help me with that? Still here? Is he gone? Maybe he's gone. Okay. Oh, he's there. The green elephant man. Okay. Thank you. So, I've heard that you applied for a doctorate at UCT and submitted your thesis to the Jewish Studies Department using your first book, The Torah as an Enlightenment Toolkit. I've asked the prof to speed up the response to you and help you achieve your educational dream. Dr. David Lipschitz, Order of Mapungubwe, sounds excellent. I look forward to attending your graduation someday soon. I've cleared your bond debt, paid off your other debts, and given you sovereign status for your land, ratified by South Africa and 2 other United Nations countries also listening in on this conversation. And lastly, you have my word as a human and sentient being that you'll be honored and protected with every force that my government and its successors of every political party can muster. You also have free access to whatever legal requirements you need, and I know that this will mean that we will need to change our laws. Is that enough? David crying. Yes, thank you, Sibongile. Are you open to a hug? Bongani. Sibongile glances at his private secretary M and security detail who both nod, and David cries on Sibongile's shoulder. Thank you, everybody.
That's not a question. I want you to dedicate a book to the real life.
Can I stop?
And stop.